It doesn't seem normal.
Well, I'm Charles de Lauzirika, the director, co-screenwriter, producer, and a few other things, I think, on Crave. It's my first feature. It's a psychological thriller. It also has some elements of dark comedy, some horror, some fantasy. It's a little bit of everything because it's a movie basically about what's going on in our main character's mind. And there's a lot of dark and disturbing, but also occasionally fun things. So Crave is sort of an emotional roller coaster. And that seems to be what people have been responding to. It wasn't very hard making the jump in terms of the job. It was hard just finding the right project to start with. I had been working in documentaries on the making of movies, behind the scenes documentaries for 15 years. And I've been wanting to make a feature film since I was 7 years old. So it's been a long time, and it was a combination of finding what's the right project, when can I work it into my schedule, how can I get the money together to make it, actors, crew, location, all of those things. So it took a while to line up all of those elements. The actual making of the movie was a lot of fun. There were a lot of problems because of the budget and the location and, you know, just a lot of politics and who knows what. A lot of weird things happened on the movie, but that's what directors have to deal with on every movie. As I've witnessed other directors in my day job, they have to deal with crazy things all the time, so that's nothing new. And actually, I kind of, when it was over, when we finished the movie, I was kind of sad that all the craziness was ending, because it's like going to the circus every day. Well, there are certain films that they don't fit into a genre very easily. A couple films I mention often with Crave, not because Crave is as good as those films, but just because they are unique genre hybrids, would be like Fight Club or Taxi Driver. I mean, these are films that they do their own thing. I think Crave does its own thing in its own small way. I personally see Crave as a dysfunctional romance, as a love story, but very dark and twisted. I'm told I shouldn't sell the movie that way because people don't want to see that. I think they do, because I think that we all deal with that on one level or another. But there's certainly a psychological thriller aspect to the film as well. So it's what I love about Crave is that it's a film for people who love films. It's a film for people who make films. It's a film that kind of celebrates film by taking everything we've seen in genre and then just kind of going the other way with it. So that's kind of what I enjoy about it, which makes it difficult to sell. I mean, that's the honest truth. It's a difficult movie to sell, to market. But I think once you get in there and once you see the film, you'll see that it's something that's a little bit different and takes kind of the fun of other genres and then blends them into a new drink, a new cocktail.
All right, here we go. All your money now.
You're a coward. Is that really how you want to end up? Afraid to live life? If only you did have a gun, a real gun, they'd finally take you seriously.
If you were to talk to other filmmakers about the budget, Crave has a much bigger budget than, say, The Battery that Jeremy had to deal with. So I can't really, whine and complain about my budget versus a lot of other independent film budgets. I mean, Crave had a pretty decent budget. Certainly it looks more expensive than it cost. That's one thing I'm happy with the film, is the production value was certainly far beyond what I think the actual spend on the movie was. But there's, as a filmmaker, you're always trying to get more and better and maybe bigger sometimes, but certainly you want better. And sometimes better requires more time, and time is more money. And that's where you sometimes run out of time because you run out of money. Those are the realities of the situation. But I think if you enjoy the process, part of the fun of that is finding new ways to get around those problems. If for instance, if you're given a location and the day before, and this happened on Crave, like 2 days before, they took the location away because they wanted more money. You can't just stop the movie. You have to move on. You have to try another avenue to move forward, and that's what we did. And that's kind of, again, that's the game you have to play beyond just telling the story. There's this whole universe happening on the side of the making of the movie that is, it's definitely a challenge, but I think it's kind of fun once you're over it. When it's in the past, you can look back and laugh. When you're in the middle of it, it's tough. When we started thinking about locations for the film based on the script was originally written for New York. But out of convenience for everyone involved, we thought about LA. LA was expensive, New York was expensive. So the idea of Detroit came up because it was cheaper to shoot in Detroit because they have a tax incentive. They have a lot of production support, or they used to have it anyway. So we thought about that strictly from a financial point of view. More importantly to me, though, was the main character of Aiden is a character who is eroding from the inside. He's deteriorating. He's a broken down man, very much like Detroit is as a city. What's interesting about Detroit is even though it has definitely fallen on hard times over the last several decades, it's a beautiful city. There's beautiful architecture. There are really fascinating American ruins of old abandoned buildings that are now being reclaimed by nature. There are trees growing inside of buildings. It's a fascinating city. On top of that, I think there's a desire amongst people who live in Detroit to rebuild and to just, if they just had a chance to like do something new with the city, I think they're really willing to do it, and they just kind of keep falling on hard times. It's some bad political decisions made at higher levels. But I think that Detroit is an amazing city that really deserves a comeback. And so I kind of fell in love with Detroit when we shot there because I was not originally thinking about it. And once I got there and I kind of got what the city meant to people and then what it was going to mean for my movie, it made sense to me. It finally kind of came together, and I think there's not another city on earth I would rather have made Crave in. It's the perfect city for the character and our story. Well, look, it's very easy for me to like look back at the last 15 years of doing the behind-the-scenes material and think about all the experiences I've witnessed other directors go through, right? And it's very easy for me to say, okay, if I'm facing a problem, what did Ridley do? Or what did Michael Bay do? Or what do all these other directors do that I've witnessed? And that's very helpful to like have that virtual experience, even though it's not my own experience. I can still think, oh, that's kind of how they dealt with that problem. So that was helpful to have. But in terms of the style and the vision and just the directorial signature of the film, I feel like that had to come from here more than anywhere else. And I don't really feel like I was influenced much by those other filmmakers. I was just influenced in terms of how they presented themselves on set, how they dealt with the crew, how they handled problems. In terms of the story and the artistic vision, I think that's all, frankly, me and then Rob Lawton, the original writer. I think between the two of us, that's where it began. And then it kind of ended, I think, with what I just like to see in movies. You know, the mood, the tone, the visual style, the music. I mean, those are things I love in other films. I mean, directors like Ridley Scott, like David Fincher, like Stanley Kubrick, like the Coen brothers. I mean, there's so many filmmakers who I just adore. And little bits here and there, they're like spices. It's like when you cook, right? And you have a kitchen filled with spices, and you're like, okay, I want a little bit of Kubrick today. You're not making Kubrick. We just have a little bit of him, you know? And that's kind of what I was maybe doing subconsciously.
Every one of us has a good wolf and a bad wolf living inside of us.